All right, so it's been quite a while since I've been able to actually sit down in my own house and actually make a video about really anything, um, because I was away on training for a little while, and then I came back to my house that had flooded. So don't mind this big door right here. This is just something that was left over after the repair company basically tore my house apart. So almost everything I own is pretty much in the garage. There's a lot of, you can see there's the one of the sinks is down there. Um, so my house is not currently in a livable state. So I'm currently dealing with what I have available on hand, but I'm still able to go out in the garage and like do gun stuff because thankfully my office space, my armory, and stuff like that was not affected by the flood. Not all that much, anyways. So I'm still able to go out and shoot and do gun stuff while I'm waiting for all this stuff to get done, basically, which is going to take quite a while. So, in the meantime, to prevent myself from going insane, I still am shooting guns occasionally, but not as much as probably as I used to, due to ammo availability and prices being absolutely like through the freaking roof. So, I am trying to limit somewhat my uh, usual range time. But anyway, with all that, I wanted to review an unlikely rifle that I got many years ago when I was very young, and my dad had gotten it for me. So what I have is this very average looking standard kind of bolt rifle. This is a Mossberg 100 ATR chambered in 30-06, and it is about as basic as you could get for your average run-of-the-mill bolt-action rifle. I mean, there's absolutely nothing special about this. You know, it is. I think it was supposed to be Mossberg's kind of like budget line of hunting rifles way back when. I don't even know if they still even make the 100 ATR series of rifles. I think they've replaced it now with like the what is it, the Patriot series, or like the MVPs and things like that. So this is a very old rifle. Well, old compared to modern stuff, but it's not like a Milsurp old or anything like that. But it's getting up there in age. And this rifle was given to me by my dad when I was very young, just getting into shooting, because he wanted to take me deer hunting. He wanted to take me hog hunting, medium to large game hunting, and I needed a nice bolt action rifle to do it with. So I must have been like 10 or 11 at the time. I was way young, especially for something like this. This thing is a thumper. So we went to the gun show, and Dad's just looking around, and he found this, used with no scope or anything, pretty much as you see it here with the regular stock and everything. I think he even put a limb saver butt pad on it. But anyway, he bought that, and that was also a time where 30-06 surplus ammo was incredibly cheap, and it was absolutely everywhere. I mean, you couldn't give this stuff away. It was just absolutely like plentiful. So we ended up buying two of the big like 50 cal ammo cans full of 30-06 Greek surplus ammo that was intended to be used, I think, in like machine guns, real machine guns back in the day. And I believe after I did some research, the ammo I think is dated around to like the early 1970s. So I guess the Greeks were still using 30-06 even in the 70s. So I mean that's pretty cool. The ammo itself it's held up well over the years because I've stored it properly, but it's dirty. It's not very accurate. I mean, it's your regular military ball ammo, nothing special. But yeah, so got this rifle. I forget what my dad paid for it. He must have paid like maybe $200, maybe $150, something like that. And he says, well, you need a scope to go with it. Well, my dad didn't really know a whole lot about scopes at the time, so we just went to your local Walmart there down the street and bought one of the a Walmart special scope, which is still on this thing. I think it's even right there on the side. You can read that. It says Center Point, which is just another one of the millions of nameless Chinesium brands out there for really cheap optics that you would find, sitting atop your Bubbed SKS's, the finest Chinesium, right? Not what you would call a quality optic by any means, but it worked. So we did all that, got the scope all set up, put it on this thing, and this is the gun where I learned what recoil was. Because my entire time, just growing up shooting like that, my dad was exclusively like, you're shooting a Ruger Mark II, you're shooting a Ruger 10-22, it's all 22 all the time to get you with the basics. But when he gave me this rifle, this thing definitely taught me what recoil was like. Because you get a rifle this light, with the synthetic stock and everything, with 30-06 rounds in it, it's gonna hurt. it just will. This thing is an absolute thumper, and I had many a bruised shoulder before I figured out how to actually shoot, powerful rifles like this, or light rifles in, full power cartridges like that, in chamberings, I should say, in this kind of format, because these things are punishing. So for a long time, I did not want to shoot this thing very much because I just didn't know how to shoot it properly. My dad didn't really know how to shoot it properly, at least to teach me how to do it. And growing up too, when you're growing up, your body's going through all those changes and everything. You're getting taller or whatever, and it's not a practical rifle for somebody who's like, less than 16, 14. So I didn't shoot this thing for a long time, but I always kept it with me. This thing has gone with me everywhere I've gone, at least where I'm able to anyway. So always had this rifle, been maintaining it, and it's always been a very good shooter for me. In fact, despite the scope being made out of the finest Chinesium, and it has no business being as reliable as it has been, this scope has actually been 100% fine. It is not broken. It's not lost zero. It hasn't done anything wrong. It just has been working. So I've been very, very surprised by that, because a 30-06, in a light gun like this, the recoil is immense, and you think it would just destroy an optic like this. I mean, this scope is probably like $60 maybe, but it hasn't, and this thing has remained sturdy just fine. I've had no issues with it. It's just a real cheap 4 to 16. Yeah, 4 to 16. With it's just been working for me. I don't know how else to explain it. But I didn't really shoot this rifle seriously until I got older and older, and then I had all this 30-06 ammo lying around, and I thought, man, I really should just go and shoot this stuff. So I took it out, and I was immensely surprised at how well I was able to shoot this thing. With the Greek surplus ammo, I was getting right around 1.5 to 2.5 MOA with this in 100 yards, benched, which is about to be what to be expected out of that kind of ammo. But when I started putting nicer quality ammo, like modern production 30-06, not milsurp stuff, or like hunting ammo or match ammo through this thing, I mean, we're talking like, I think the last good group I got with this was like just under 1 MOA, with using like regular SMB, FMJ type stuff, not even match ammo, not even hunting ammo, just regular FMJ stuff. I was able to get a sub MOA group with this thing, which is pretty awesome, considering this is it's about as budget as you can get. I mean, it's a budget rifle. It's got a polymer stock. It's not even threaded. It's got an internal 4-round magazine, and I have a crappy, Chinesium scope on here, which is supposed to be broken by now, but it hasn't. All these things taken together, and the fact this rifle is perfectly stock. I've not done anything to this. Able to get accuracy like that, I think, is pretty darn awesome. And so this rifle would absolutely be able to fulfill the role that it was originally intended to be, which is, to hunt. So. And surprisingly, it's turned out to be a pretty darn accurate rifle too. So I've been just really happy with how this thing has turned out. Honestly, it's the most unlikely thing ever, because when you think budget, it's not going to be accurate. It's not going to be reliable. The parts are going to break. Especially with the scope I have, when it comes to optics, you definitely pay for what you get. I've learned that the hard way. But sometimes you do occasionally get something that miraculously doesn't break like this. So, no guarantee though that any other center point optics, if they still even exist, would hold up the same. I doubt they would. I just got lucky. I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it. But I've actually won a bet against a friend of mine. He has this special like Remington 700 rifle with the fancy like rubber over molded stock. He's got his hand loads for it. He's got his expensive optics and everything. So we had a little bit of a competition or a bet to, I think it was to fire 4 shots with under a minute as accurately as we could at 100 yards. And I just so happened to have some Lake City match 30-06 ammo, and so I fed that through this thing. And despite all the advantages that he had and all the disadvantages that I had, with my rifle not being anywhere near as nice as his, my ammo not being anywhere near as good as his hand loads, which his hand loads I've seen him get like 0.4 MOA with that. So I know the ammo is accurate. I know the ammo is good. I know the rifle can do it. I know he can do it. I've seen it before multiple times. He's gotten fantastic grips out of it. But we did the 4 rounds under a minute, and with ammo that we're using and everything else at 100 yards, and I just barely beat him. It was almost imperceptible. He really wanted to call it a tie, and I kind of did too. But I was like, I think given all of the other factors here and how his rifle cost probably 2 or 3 times what mine did, I think we could probably call that a win, at least for me, given all the disadvantages that I have. And we're both relatively experienced shooters as well. So that was very, very interesting, very cool to see that this old thing, can perform just as well as those fancy bolt action rifle setups that all these dudes have these days, which got me to thinking, man, I really should get a 6.5 Creedmoor and join the horde and join the fad of all the super precision bolt action rifle guys. Because if I can shoot that well with this rifle, like imagine what I could do with a really, really nice setup like that with optics that cost as much as the rifle, super accurate caliber, match ammo, all this crazy shit. Put all that together and just see what I can do with it, But so yeah, I have a lot of history, a lot of memory with this gun. I grew up with it. It's this gun and Mosin Nagants are what told me what educated me into what recoil was like. And despite its unlikely origins and provenance and all that stuff, there's nothing to suggest that this rifle should be as accurate as it is, or that this optic is holding up as well as it has over the years. Shoot, I've owned this rifle for more than almost 2 decades now, and it's still held up very well. In fact, this rifle has also survived two floods now. The previous apartment that I was in had flooded, and it got into my weapon space, and it rusted a lot of my guns, including this one. But the finish has held up very, very well. I was able to get the rust off of it. No permanent damage to the rifle. It's worked just fine. And then a second time when my house here flooded, the water actually did make the house humid enough to the point where some of my things actually did rust a little bit. Not as bad as the first time, but there is a little bit of rust like in the stock screws in here, but nothing major to the outside of this gun. So it survived both of those floods just fine. It's still shooting great. The scope is still holding up miraculously for whatever reason. I can't fathom why. It shoots really, really good, has a decent trigger, and it's in 30-06, which it's actually the only weapon I have that's in 30-06. I really do need to get an M1 Garand at some point, but yeah. So all around, I mean, this thing has just been great for what it is, and it kind of makes me want to see how other budget bolt action rifles are, because if this one's good, surely the other ones can be even better with all like the modern, better manufacturing techniques and all the different things they're doing today and the developments we've had, since the 90s. I feel like the budget rifles now are going to be even better than this one, for roughly the same price. So I guess the moral of the story is don't discount cheap, but I would say don't be on the lookout exclusively for cheap, because cheap does not always mean quality, but there are some cases where cheap can mean high value, and high value is a little bit different from buying high quality. But nobody would ever confuse this thing with being like super duper high quality. I mean, it is Mossberg. I've never had any issues with any Mossberg products ever. Both shotguns that I've had, or actually three now, three shotguns. This rifle, two MVPs, one in 308, one in 5.56. Great rifles. Not necessarily what you would say like super duper refined, like they're not going to wow you or anything when it comes to like how they look and everything. But as far as like operation reliability, accuracy, all the Mossberg products I've had have been just fine, you know. So yeah, really do like this gun. I've got a ton of history with it. It is totally unassuming, and it has no reason to be as good as it is. So that's the moral of the story, and just kind of wanted to bring that to you guys and share one of the, definitely one of the older guns that I've had for many years. So anyway, reviews and videos and stuff will be a bit sporadic as I figure out my house situation, so bear with me. But yeah, that's just one of the things I wanted to show. So yeah, we'll see you next time.